Hi, I'm Jen, and you're listening to the Shadow Sanctuary, where I dig into the history of haunted locations to try and find a correlation between historical fact and paranormal experience. Is there a reason for the hauntings? Why does energy stay? Keep listening to find out more. Before we step into the darkness, a quick word from our sponsor. When you're chasing ghosts, uncovering haunted history, or exploring the unexplained, the last thing you need is an energy drink that leaves you crashing before the story even reaches its terrifying conclusion. That's where Dubby Energy comes in. Dubby is a clean energy drink created to keep you focused without the crash, the jitters, or that anxious feeling that so many other energy drinks leave behind. And what isn't in Dubby is just as important as what is. There's zero sugar. No maltodextrin fillers, no artificial colors or dyes, no secret formulas, no hidden ingredients, and it's completely gluten-free. Inside every serving, you'll find 150 milligrams of caffeine, along with vitamins, amino acids, and a nootropic to help keep your mind sharp when you're venturing into the unknown. Every flavor is custom created by Dubby, so you're tasting something you won't find anywhere else. And it's all proudly made right here in the USA. So, before we unlock another haunted location, before we listen for whispers in the dark, before we ask the questions we may not want answered, make sure you're powered by Dubby Energy. Visit dubby.gg and use my exclusive code Shadow Sanctuary at checkout to receive 10% off your entire order. That's dubby.gg and code Shadow Sanctuary for 10% off. Now, dim the lights, silence your phone, listen closely, because every shadow has a history, and every history has a ghost. Picture a playground, swings, a jungle gym, the kind of place you take your kids on a Saturday morning. Now picture it surrounded on three sides by headstones, because in Huntsville, Alabama, that's exactly where this playground sits. Tucked into a low-shaded corner of the state's oldest cemetery. Locals don't call it by its real name anymore. They call it something else. The Dead Children's Playground. And tonight on the Shadow Sanctuary podcast, we're going to find out why. I'm your host, Jen. Let's get into it. Let's start with what we already know for certain. Maple Hill Cemetery is the oldest and largest cemetery in the state of Alabama. It was founded in 1822 on just 2 acres of land, sold to the city by a farmer named Leroy Pope. Today it's grown to nearly 100 acres, holding nearly 80,000 burials, including 5 former governors, 5 U.S. senators, Confederate leaders, and even a Major League Baseball player. This isn't some forgotten roadside graveyard. It's a landmark, a piece of Huntsville's identity. But right on its edge sits that playground. Small, simple, ordinary looking in the daylight. And the story of how it earned its nickname starts with one of the darkest years in American history. In 1918, the Spanish flu pandemic is sweeping the globe, and Huntsville isn't spared. Hospitals fill up. Doctors and nurses work around the clock trying to ease the suffering of their patients. And a disproportionate number of the dead are children. Many of the children who died during the epidemic were buried in the Maple Hill Cemetery, in the same ground where the playground now stands. That's the origin locals point to. Not a myth built from nothing, a real tragedy still resting quietly beneath the swings. Here's where the story splits into 2 paths, one rooted in history and one that's murkier. The flu epidemic explains why children are buried there, but it doesn't fully explain the second story that's attached itself to this place over the decades. A darker rumor that some Huntsville residents still whisper about. The story goes that sometime in the 1960s, a string of child disappearances shook the city. And local legend claims, though this has never been confirmed by any official record, that the missing children were connected to the land where the playground now sits. I want to be very upfront with you here. This part of the story is folklore, not documented fact. I couldn't find verified news reporting or police records confirming a string of 1960s abductions tied to this location. It may be a legend that grew over time, the way ghost stories often do, details shifting and darkening with each retelling. But it's persistent enough and told seriously enough by locals that it has become a part of the site's reputation. What we do know is this. By the time the playground was built on the cemetery grounds, its unsettling nickname was already taking root. So what actually happens there according to the people who have visited? Swings that move with no wind to push them. Laughter echoing through the trees after dark when no children are anywhere in sight. Ghostly figures reported on the playground equipment late at night, gone the moment someone looks directly at them. And it's not just the playground. Elsewhere in the cemetery, visitors talk about an old rocking chair sitting outside a family crypt, one that belonged to a woman buried inside, reportedly rocking on its own. One visitor's account shared online described something chilling. Sitting on the swings as a child, noticing another kid beside them who hadn't been there a moment before, and then watching a group of children climb down from the rocks nearby, only to vanish the instant they got close. Whether that's memory, imagination, or something else, it's the kind of story that sticks with a place. In 2007, the city actually tried to remove the playground altogether. The cemetery had run out of burial space, and officials planned to expand into the park to create more plots. The backlash from the community was immediate and fierce. People fought to keep it standing, which says something, doesn't it? A playground with this reputation, genuinely feared and avoided by most, and still the town refused to let it go. Maybe because underneath the ghost stories, there's something more human going on. 100 children gone too soon in 1918, given a place that still echoes with the sound of play. Grief memorialized in swing sets instead of stone. So is it the spirit of flu victims still finding joy in a place that was built in some strange way in their memory? Is it something darker, tied to a story no one can quite confirm? Or is it simply the atmosphere of an old cemetery, doing what old cemeteries do best, filling silence with imagination? I'll let you decide. If you'd like to read a book based on this cemetery, check out The Dead Children's Playground by James Kane. Maple Hill Cemetery is located at 202 Maple Hill Street, Huntsville, Alabama. If you ever find yourself in Huntsville, Alabama, near an empty playground at dusk, and you hear laughter, I'd think twice before staying to listen. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to check us out on Facebook for more information on upcoming episodes. As always, don't let the eerie vibes fade too quickly. Stay haunted, my friends.